Hari Om. When people who are extremely dear to us die, it causes immense grief. How to overcome such suffering? It is true that when we lose our loved ones like father, mother, sisters, brothers, friends, son, daughter, etc., it causes a lot of pain and suffering. So, how to overcome such extreme pain and suffering? The reason for our grief and suffering is the fact that such death puts an abrupt end to any kind of interactions with our loved ones, isn't it? So basically, we can never have any kind of interaction whatsoever with such a person, and since we are very affectionate with them, we love them, we are attached to them, we find it extremely difficult to accept the fact that we can no longer be able to interact, show our affection to them in whatever way. So, this is the reason for our suffering. We don't have any such suffering when we hear about the death of any other person who may not be very close with us, because we don't have that kind of affection and deep involvement with such people, and also we don't have so much of past experiences, remembrances, memories with such people. So naturally we will not face any kind of suffering or pain when we hear the news of someone who is not very close with us and who has passed away. And even if we are in such intense grief and suffering, when we go to sleep, either at night or during the daytime, like in the days which follow, wherein we have lost our loved ones. So when we go to sleep, then we can see that during sleep we are in peace and silence as usual. The grief and pain which has been causing us a lot of suffering while we are awake, the same grief or suffering does not cause us any issues when we go to deep sleep. Why? Because when we go to deep sleep, our mind is inactive for that time period, and hence we don't have any kind of thoughts, and since we don't have any kind of thoughts and emotions in deep sleep, we don't feel any kind of suffering or pain. There is only peace in deep sleep, even on the very same day when we have lost our loved one and we go to sleep. This is the experience of all people. How much of our suffering we may have, but when we go to sleep, when we are in deep sleep, then for that time period we don't experience any suffering, because there is no mind which is active for that time, and since there are no thoughts, so we basically remain in peace. So from this we can understand the fact that it is because of thoughts we face so much of suffering and pain when we lose our loved ones. It is not only for this particular event, for the matter, all of our suffering in this world is because of thoughts. How much ever suffering we may have when we go to deep sleep, we are not conscious of any such suffering. Only when we are awake again, then again we start with all the issues, suffering, grief, etc. So the reason why we face such intense suffering is because of the fact that we are attached to people. It is not at all possible for anyone not to have any kind of affection with our loved ones like father, mother, daughters, sons, sisters, brothers, etc. So it is natural only. But what we need to understand is that we need to go beyond this state of attachment and suffering. There is a state which is quite beyond this normal state of our existence, wherein we can lead a peaceful life, we can be affectionate with everyone as much as possible, but at the same time we can be able to remain without any kind of pain and suffering when we are faced with this kind of physical departure of our loved ones. How? As I have said earlier, the attachment that we have towards our loved ones is the cause of the intense pain and suffering, because due to our affection attachment, we understand that we can no longer be able to have any kind of interaction with our loved one. We can never see him alive in person again. What we can go back is to recollect our past events with our loved ones, and again we can reflect on those past interactions. This is how we try to, in a way, console ourselves to the extent we can do that. But this kind of consolation, it will only give us some kind of comfort only for a limited time. Again, we will start to reflect on the fact that we can never again see our loved ones in person. We cannot hug them, we cannot show our affection to them in any way whatsoever, and hence again we will go back to the state of suffering and pain. So what is the way out? What exactly we need to understand and we need to apply in life so that we shall remain in peace even when our loved ones depart physically from this world, and the way in which we can offer or be of great assistance and help to our loved ones even after they leave this physical world. How can we do that? So one thing we understand is that it is because of our mind, thoughts, emotions, feelings, etc. we face such immense suffering and pain. Because in deep sleep we don't have any kind of thoughts, and hence we find that while we are asleep we don't have any problem, we are always in peace. So in the same way, what we need to understand and apply in life as a matter of practice is that we need to experience the state of death even while we are alive in this physical body. How can that happen? Experiencing death, conscious death. Very simple. It is just that we can have unlimited love and affection towards our dear ones and everyone as much possible. But at the same time, we need to understand the fact that thoughts are our enemy. So, to the extent we can eradicate unwanted thoughts, like thoughts of some past events, memories. So all those things are useful only when we need them. Like they are good servants, but they cannot be our masters. When we want, we can make use of some information from past memories and we can make use of it. At the same time, the past memories should not be allowed to come and cause us issues or problems even when we don't invite them. So that way, what we need to apply or spiritual sadhana that one has to practice is to remain without unwanted thoughts and yet while being conscious. How to do that? It is the great practice of Mahayoga, the most direct spiritual path towards enlightenment, liberation, as taught by Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi. The practice of Mahayoga is all about being in the state of conscious death, even while being physically alive. It is actually just to remain in our natural state of pure being, the I am or Aham, the pure awareness, the presence of Bhagavan, which happens when we turn our attention towards the source of all kind of thoughts. Whatever thoughts we may experience, whatever thoughts which may arise, instead of trying to fulfill those thoughts, what we naturally do is we shift our attention to the source of these thoughts, which is basically the pure being, the sense of I am, the existence consciousness, Satchit. It is only from this pure awareness all thoughts arise, the ego arises, the mind rises up. So we understand the fact that whenever any unwanted thoughts arise, then immediately our attention should be shifted towards the source of these thoughts. Thereby we become focused within on our own self-awareness, the pure I, the presence of Bhagavan. And the moment our attention is on this pure being, then naturally the thought which had risen would go away, would subside. So we need to apply this shifting of our attention towards the source of these thoughts as and when any thoughts arise, so that those thoughts can be eradicated, subsided in the very same moment by keeping our attention on the pure being of I am, the pure I, the presence of Bhagavan. So as we keep on doing this practice often enough, every day, all the time, what naturally happens is that even while engaging in the worldly activities, jobs, busy schedules, etc., we are always conscious of our natural state of pure being of I am, the pure I, the existence consciousness, the presence of Bhagavan. And, our attention will also be on that inner presence even while engaging in the activities. So that way what happens is that whatever interactions, activities we may have in this world on a daily basis, we always retain our inner attention or focus towards the pure being of presence of Bhagavan. So then what happens is that we will not have much of unwanted thoughts. We will not look back and reflect about past events unless it is required. So more or less we remain in the state of being conscious yet devoid of unwanted thoughts. So in essence it is more of being conscious while being active in this external world. We are active. We engage in various actions. The physical body is involved with so many activities, body and mind. But at the same time, our attention is always on that pure awareness, which is not related to any kind of thoughts. It is rather the source of mind, the pure awareness, the I am, Aham, the presence of Bhagavan. When we remain in peace, when we are devoid of any kind of thoughts, then what really happens is our mind subsides into its source of pure being. Again, when we have thoughts, the mind rises up, the ego rises up, and then we engage in multiple worldly activities with lot of emotions, feelings, etc. Then the very next moment, if we can be watchful and alert, we will again turn our attention towards the source of these thoughts or the mind. Thereby our attention will be focused on our inner awareness, and since the attention is on the inner awareness, the pure being, then naturally the thought which are arisen would subside back and our mind will sink into its source and remain merged in the pure I for a time being. So to the extent our mind remain merged in the presence of Bhagavan or pure I, to that extent the ego or the mind loses its strength and it learns to understand the peace and happiness of being merged in the pure awareness, the presence of Bhagavan. So the more the mind is able to experience that peace and happiness of being merged within, even though it is for a short period of time, the mind naturally seeks that happiness. The mind then understands the fact that the external world doesn't hold any interest, because whatever the kind of worldly pleasures, they can no longer be equal to the kind of peace and happiness which we experience when our mind remain merged in the presence of Bhagavan. So gradually we understand the efficacy and the worth of keeping our mind subsided in its source of pure being, and while being subsided in that state of pure I, the presence of Bhagavan, then naturally it is a state of being conscious and experiencing death. Because what actually is death? Death is basically not having any connection with our physical body, of course, because we sever our connections physically. But beyond that, the actual fact is that It puts an end to all kind of our thinking, reflections, memories, feelings, etc. So we remain in a state of being aloof physically and mentally, and it puts us into a state of great suffering because we are not used to that state of being. Now, when we practice Mahayoga, the ultimate spiritual practice, where we can experience the presence of Bhagavan always here and now, what really happens is that we begin to experience death consciously while being alive. We remain merged in the presence of Bhagavan even while being active in this world. So, which basically means that physically we will be active, we will be interacting with people, etc. At the same time, our attention is always on the pure eye and the presence of Bhagavan. So, it is actually being extremely conscious, but not letting our mind wander on the worldly objects, people, persons, etc. So that way, the mind doesn't wander while being conscious. At the same time, we also engage in our worldly activities. This is the beauty of the practice of Mahayoga, by which one can experience the state of conscious death often, every day. And in due course of time with this practice, even when we have to lose our loved ones, unfortunately, still we always understand in the deepest sense that being merged in the presence of Bhagavan within is the only ultimate worship, help, assistance or prayer we can do towards our loved ones. It is indeed the highest form of prayer to remain merged in the pure eye or the presence of Bhagavan, the pure being. Because the presence of Bhagavan is the source of all auspiciousness, all blessings, happiness and peace. So, when we remain in that source, in the presence of Bhagavan, the sense of I am, the pure being, we actually are in conscious touch with all our loved ones, because our loved ones might have left their physical presence, but they are also rooted in the pure being or I am as a source of their mind, in whatever plane they may be existing. So, when we remain in the presence of Bhagavan or the pure being, then we are actually in touch at the deepest level with all our loved ones. And it is also the highest form of prayer and kind of consolation we can offer to our loved ones as well. So in a way, it is the highest help we can extend to our loved ones and to all other beings as well. It is the ultimate state of pure being, to be in the presence of Bhagavan. So when we understand this fact, wherever our loved ones may be, in whatever plane, we can be rest assured of the fact that while being in the presence of Bhagavan, the pure being, the I am, then we are always in the conscious touch with all our loved ones, and it naturally uplifts them as well towards this state of enlightenment. They are also become more aware of the fact that they also need to keep their attention on the presence of Bhagavan, which is always there within all of us, with all of us even after we leave this physical body, because the presence of being, the presence of Bhagavan, the pure being I am, is not at the physical level, is not at the level of mind, it is beyond body and mind. So it is something we can always access even after we leave this physical body. So in a way, the more we remain in the presence of Bhagavan, the more our loved ones also will be influenced by the presence of Bhagavan, because the I am within one is the I am within every other person as well. The I am is like electric current which lights various fans, bulbs, etc. But the underlying electric current remains the same. The same way, we may have different physical bodies, etc. But the presence of pure ray, the I am, sense of I am, it remains same within all of us. It is infinite. It is actually the presence of Bhagavan. So, to the extent we can remain in the presence of Bhagavan, to that extent our loved ones also will become aware of that conscious presence. It will also influence them to make more effort so that they can also keep their attention on the presence of Bhagavan. And so in a way it will also be of great help, a kind of reminder to them that they can also move towards or make efforts to know their pure being, the presence of Bhagavan within, the state of enlightenment or self-realization as we call it. So, it is by this way, the practice of Mahayoga, that we can in a way transform our grief and suffering to that of state of peace and happiness, by which everyone, our loved ones, those who are living in this world, everyone shall be able to make a quick progress towards the state of being in the presence of Bhagavan all the time. So this kind of experiential understanding is very important for everyone to not to get impacted by that suffering when we lose our loved ones. So this is what we need to understand. Death is basically severing of our connection with the physical body. We have three bodies: Sthula, Sukshma, Karana, Shariram, and we have 5 koshas. Annamaya kosha is this physical body. Second kosha is that of our breath, Pranamaya kosha. Third kosha is of our mind. Fourth is that of intellect, Buddhi. Fifth one is that of Anandamaya kosha, the state of deep sleep or vasanas. So when we undergo the process of physical death, we only lose our first kosha, the Annamaya kosha. All remaining koshas are intact. Sthula Shariram, we leave off here, physical body. But the Sukshma and Karana Shariram, they are intact. So even after leaving this physical body, we shall ever remain in touch with the presence of Bhagavan all the time. Only thing is that we need to learn, practice, understand, and learn to be in that presence of Bhagavan while being alive. This is a state of conscious death. So the ego or the mind that grieves because of the fact that we have lost our loved ones should die. This is the only way to go beyond suffering, and also the only way by which we can offer our help and prayer to our loved ones. As told in Bhagavad Gita, the body becomes old, then just as we remove our old clothes and then start wearing our new clothes, the same way the body which has become old is getting left here in this physical world, and the jiva or the individual assumes a new body, a kind of a new cloth. So when we have our cloth, it is part of us. But when we have to leave whatever cloth we are wearing, then still what we are does not undergo any change. We remain as we are, whether we are having one particular cloth or not having that particular cloth. In the same way, death also does not impact us so much. It is just very similar to the way in which we can get rid of one cloth, and even after not wearing that cloth, we as the individual person remain as we are. Of course, the particular cloth which was there over our body, right now it is not there, but at the same time it doesn't give us a sense of losing anything as such. We are always full, complete, whether with that particular cloth or without that particular cloth. This we can very easily understand. So in this same way, whether we have a particular physical body or not, once we start learning this path of conscious death, the Mahayoga, then naturally we experience the state of death while being in this body, so that thereafter one will not be able to have any kind of grief or suffering, because the moment grief comes, our attention will be shifted towards the presence of Bhagavan, and then the grief goes off by itself. And being in that presence of Bhagavan is the highest blessing for all beings. So naturally then we are offering our highest prayers and assistance to our loved ones wherever they may be, because being in that presence of Bhagavan, the pure I, the pure being, we are always in conscious touch with our loved ones, as we are sharing the same sense of awareness, the pure being, the I am. So let us understand this fact, so that once for all we can get rid of this fear of death, and at the same time, even when we are faced with the death of our loved ones, instead of grief and suffering, let there be conscious abundance in the presence of Bhagavan all the time, which is the ultimate, highest and infinite happiness and peace which we can share with our loved ones and with everyone else as well. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala.